Hey guys, this is Savannah from earthandwater.co. Today I'm here with Sheree Buckman, about healing medium and the host of the podcast About Healing,
That's right.
which is the title, but that's also what it's about.
Correct. About Healing podcast. Yep. I know. It's so descriptive and to the point. That's what I was hoping.
That's what I did with mine too, though, because we
Yeah.
get too hung up on naming things when you can name it the most cleverest name in the world. If no one understands it, if you have to actually listen to it to understand it, then it's the disconnect, and then people don't realize that they want to listen to it. So I just threw some SEO words up there that, if people are searching for these words, then they're gonna like what I got to offer.
That was a good way to do it. I know when we started it, because I started with a partner when we very first started, and finding the title was the hardest part. I
Yeah.
mean, and then it was all the searches. Is it already taken? Like what's already out there? And oh, it was a big mess, but we finally found one. I was actually divinely guided to do About Healing, to putting about in there. So that's a fun story in itself. But
Well, I'd love to
yeah.
hear it. We have a whole
Yeah.
hour. So.
Oh, well, then, and I will share it. So when we started, which by the way, fun story or separate topic. No, same topic. Just okay, so this is fun. So when I get going, like right in the middle, even on my podcast, so thank goodness I have a producer that does my editing. When I start a podcast, I am like all over the place. It's kind of why I do my announcements in the beginning before I really get in the zone because I get so scattered. And it's the same thing like when I do sessions with my clients. I'm so scattered in the middle, but it all comes together. So bear with me. Okay. So right before I started my podcast, which at first aired on 2/22 of 22.
Beautiful.
Yeah, on
I
purpose,
appreciate that.
but it was amazing. And so beforehand, like I said, we were trying to find uh, the name. I mean, it was really stressful. It took us weeks. And I remember I was visiting my sister. I was out of state and I took this little walk and I am just really talking to my guides. It's like this meditative walk. And I'm like, just send me a sign, send me something just to help me name this, whatever it's going to be, so people understand it or can see it. And it's so funny. Within moments later, I step over this like scrap piece of paper. And it was like a scrap piece of newspaper is what it was. And literally it was just like an edge that was torn out of it. And I picked it up and on it, it was like this article and it was like about, and it was someone's name, like about Tom or who know. I don't remember the actual name, but it was about that. Something stuck there for a second. And I'm like, okay. And I planted it. And then because I was already on naming it something about healing, I just didn't know how to do it. And later, as we played with it more and more, about kept coming up. So I attached it and I'm like, oh, it works. So we did all of our research and checked it. Is there anything out there in the world that is called About Healing and not in podcasts or blogs? We couldn't find one. I'm like, it's ours. And we hurried up and like created it so that we could name it that. And here it is. Yep.
That's awesome. I love that. When you come across things like that, you just know it's a knowing for sure.
It was, and it hit me hard. In fact, when I started with a partner with my podcast, and then, about halfway through the season, it found that she decided that this just wasn't her calling, but she's like, you need to go forward in it. And I felt so attached to it. I felt so much love and so much drive in doing this. And it was my own growth and my own healing while I was doing the podcast itself. And if anybody ever listened, if you listened to like the beginning of season one, it is so raw. It's so raw. But, it was one thing, it was about being honest about our own healing journey. And even for me, I help people through theirs, but you have to understand, like, I come from a place where I also have done my own healing. And so once I took it over, it was in that moment where it hit me too, where I was also divinely guided that I never even thought about it, even for a moment when I started doing this work, that I should have like this official title. Kind of like there's medical medium and like was it Rhode Island medium? Like we have all of these different ones. Never thought I would have a title, and divinely guided that About Healing medium is what I needed to take on for that too, because it is all aligned. The podcast, my work, everything I do is all aligned in healing in general. Yeah.
It's really, I agree, is what I'm trying to say. Because
Yeah.
healing medium is also not only like the intuitive type stuff, but a
Mhm.
medium is a tool that you use to heal. So, you know, it's got that
Correct.
wordplay on it and whatnot. And it tells you exactly what the podcast is about, which is awesome. Which I was giving a look over. It has a lot of cross references with my own podcast. So if they like mine, then they
Mhm.
will definitely like yours as well. Lots of chakras,
Right.
lots of meditations.
Yes, and I just started that. Yeah, this last season we did chakras. So, I with like mine, we do not only do we talk about, healing in general, but we talk about spiritual awakenings because that's a big piece of, what I teach and what I go out and doing. But also, yeah, the chakras, we need to understand that because that's a part of our energy and that's also a part of healing. I mean, we are this complete package of not only are we these human people, right? Human in this human body, and we don't just have these physical ailments, but our physical ailments come from being connected in the imbalance between our emotional and our mental and our spiritual health. It is all combined. So when one is out of alignment, they all go out of alignment.
Yeah, yeah. I argue with for example, my husband a lot about how because he'll have like a cold and I'll be like, what's bothering you? And you're like, Savannah,
Uh-huh.
not everything is emotional. Like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Literally, it all is. Like, if you have a cough, then it's usually something associated with the heart and how you're feeling loved in like yourself or from others, or, you know, there's lots of
Yeah.
different types of love. And if you have a head cold, that's oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
you've been doubting yourself or not trusting your intuition, or, you know, there's a whole lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Absolutely.
stories have definitely helped me be able to lay it out for other people to understand a little bit more.
Yes. And I love that you have that self-awareness because that's a big key in healing in general and really becoming and making a difference in your own life and those around you is the self-awareness. Because for so long we have been taught to kind of ignore our emotions. We have been taught, and it's not really on purpose, it's just the way that things were done. This is just generational line. We've been taught to suppress things. And, even in gender norms, men have been taught even further to suppress these things. But what it creates these anger, it creates these physical ailments where you are getting, high blood pressure and heart problems and, and why, what is it, number one, like illness out there is heart disease. I wonder why. It's the stress, it's all of these things. And we've been taught to suppress, 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 suppress. But the more you suppress is the more out of alignment you are, with your body and everything else. But not only that, because you brought up that little point that your husband had a cold. I have a friend too that just got sick, and I was like, okay, but I also know what's going on with her. And I'm like, well, you didn't listen to your body. And so it told you to slow down and you wouldn't listen to slow down. So it forced you to slow down. Because when we don't take care of ourselves or take the breaks that we need, because it's that part of that societal where we're at, we're being forced to go, 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 one up. We have to fill every like moment of our day in like this productive time. Like we're being graded on our productivity. Oh my goodness. I'm getting worn out talking actually about that because I think
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of this too. No, we have to take this time for self-care and we have to slow it down or you're gonna get sick. Your body's like, okay, fine. You don't listen. We're shutting down on you. And we're gonna force you in the most inconvenient time because you have deadlines or you have vacation coming up or whatever it is. You wouldn't slow down. So we're shutting it down for you. Done.
Yeah. I have a friend recently who got sick and she was texting about it and I was like, well, do you want the practical like to-do list for what you should do, or do you want like the woo-woo version? And she was like, oh my God, okay, practical first. I'm like, all right, you know, you need to go take a bath, go take a nap, go, you know, do this, do that, drink some more water, put some lemon in it. And then she was like, okay, and the woo-woo version. I was like, well, this is called like you've really been stressing yourself out over the
Mm-hmm.
indecision that you had on this right here. And then the distrust
Mm-hmm.
that you have over here with this right here is what's causing that right there. And she's like, well, damn. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right. Right. And you know what? And I think that this is such a powerful conversation and really just a topic to share, because some people don't realize that your stress and all your busyness is what is causing these physical ailments for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's take a minute. And this is beautiful. And oh my goodness, I feel all this huge alignment and I'm getting chills. Ah, sorry. When I get chills as my mediumship, it is always this validation for me. Like, they always send this like shiver down my spine. They're like, yes, keep talking about that. Do you get it now? But it is about this like self-care and awareness. So I personally too am going through it, because even when I run this purposeful business, so as About Healing Medium and part of my LLC, I run workshops, and I see clients, private clients, and I have my podcast, a weekly podcast at that. And as a podcast, that's a lot of work.
It is a lot.
And I started live events and all these other little pieces, like when I have a shop and all of this. And I realized that the more I am like creating these things is and doing it, and even though it is out of love and I feel so drawn and I enjoy this immensely, and I work my best on creating balance in my life. Like, I stop when my kids come home because I want to be present with them,
Me too.
but I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Like, not just like physically. I am drained and I hit my limit, and like I'm right in the middle of it. And it's funny because I kept this whole weekend, I'm like, I need to pull myself together. I need to pull myself together. And it was a conversation with another friend, and oh gosh, she threw my words back at me, and I love her for it. And it's exactly what I needed. I needed the reminder. Like, I'm human too, and that we need to check in with ourselves and take those perspectives. And if you're feeling tired and you're just pushing and pushing, like, let's be honest about that. I don't want to hide it. Like, I'm exhausted. Yes, I am exhausted. But I have my break coming up and I'm winding everything down. But instead of pushing ourselves, like, let's say, and I mean this in the instance, like, I want to give this example. Like, for me, I have been counting down to, this is my last week, and then I get to take my two-week break. I'm taking a break for the holidays. But
Yeah.
I've been counting this down for months. I'm like, I just need to make it there just to that date, and then I'll be good. And then I can just let go of everything. Well, I've been feeling it and it's been coming up. I'm like, oh, I'm getting to that really burnout part. Like, I'm going to get sick soon if I don't start listening. Like, I know in my back of my head, I'm really aware of that. And so instead of giving us that one deadline, it's remember that even along the journey and along the path, in the middle of all of the high stress or our busy season, right? No matter what it is, whether it's work and family or holidays or the complete package, take a minute for yourself. Take half a day. Put everything on the back burner. Like, if your laundry doesn't get done for the day, oh my goodness, is it the end of the world? Heck no, it's not. Yeah, they're sitting there dirty. We wish they were clean. Magic one
Never ending
day,
battle
maybe.
though. There's always going to be
Never ending. But why add it to your stress factor
mm-hmm.
or delegate? Now, that was a big thing for me. So I know one of my big lessons in this lifetime, for me, is about control, letting go of control, asking for help. And that was one of the big reminders that I received this weekend, talking to this other friend, is that there's so many people out there, because she reached out to me. Thank goodness her intuition's on point. She's like, I really felt like I needed to reach out. I was like, stop. I was like, started crying. I'm like, okay, it's my guides again telling me that I have people out there. Like, I have a support system. But, as a healer, sometimes on the other end, like, that's a hard thing to do, is to ask for help, because we're so used to giving. And it's balance. Like, we need to have this beautiful balance in this. Balance, 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 people. That's hard. We
It
can
is
be
hard.
these amazing givers, but if we don't receive, then we're imbalanced. Giving is great, but we need to take care of ourselves, and we need to allow ourselves, or allow other people to take care of you sometimes, to pick up the slack, or just to hold your hand or give you a hug when you're down. Even if you're the one used to doing it, it's a big, powerful moment when you can stop and do that and realize, like, the powerful community you can have around you. Sometimes we don't even realize it. Like, who do I call if something happens? Sometimes we have that one person in our mind, and usually it's this one person. But again, you probably have a lot more out there and you just don't realize it. You just didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
Not all everybody's friends are just as intuitive. You gotta make sure you're asking. Be
Yeah.
forward.
The universe will provide all sorts of things if you allow yourself to be provided for, but that's a big problem that most of us have, is that we feel like we should be completely 1,000% self-sufficient, do it all yourself. You don't want to bother anybody else with things. You don't want to um it's a worth thing underneath it all, but most of us don't realize
Mhm.
that it's a worth thing. We just think it's
Mhm.
a self-sufficient thing. We don't want to bother anybody. We're not bothering anybody. But the truth of the matter is, and especially as healers, we find ourselves kind of like um in a leadership type position, which
Mhm.
more responsibility falls on. But at the end of the day, we are still people, we are still human, and we need just the same things as everybody else needs. And it can be really hard to accept that. But sometimes
Absolutely.
taking a nap is the best, most productive thing that you can do for yourself, for your business, for everybody around you. The episode I finished we have a new episode every Tuesday. So
Mhm.
I am not ahead of the schedule on that most of the time. So I finish editing the day before a lot of the time, not always, but I did right before I got on this episode, on this recording, finish up literally 5 minutes before we hit record. We showed up on here. I finished editing that one, and it was about work-life balance and how entrepreneurs are always overwhelmed and burnout because hustle, hustle, go, go, go is the culture in that. But you need that yin energy too.
Mhm.
So sometimes you need to just take a
Mhm.
step back. And for especially as entrepreneurs, our default personality is very go, 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 hustle, hustle, work, work, work. And that's just our personalities. It's a lot of
Mhm.
it can stem from external validation that wasn't given to us previously, like as children and whatnot. And so we're trying to
Mhm.
be worthy of whatever it is that we're trying to receive. But when you have that type of personality, I found, because I have that type of personality, I definitely ran myself into the ground for years and years and years. And
Mhm.
then I decided, or I figured out that you did need that yin energy. And I'm a whole lot more productive if I just allow myself to take a nap. And I can hit the ground running again at full force after, 30 minutes. And some people that doesn't work for. You have to figure out what works for you. My husband cannot take a nap or he'll have a headache for the rest of the day. He'll be groggy and grumpy for the rest of it. My son is the same way. Me and my daughter, naps are awesome. But another tip for balancing out that yin and yang energy is making a list of, everybody's always like, yeah, your to-do list, know what you need to do. That's great. But also know what your energy quota is for the day.
Mhm.
So for me personally, if I can accomplish two big things a day, and a big thing may be editing a episode fully to like we're done with it and it's ready to be scheduled out and is scheduled out, or it may be recording an episode because they can be really draining a lot of the time. So that's a big thing.
Mhm.
An email is a big thing. A marketing scheduling is a big thing. If you can do, and your quota might be different than mine. I've been doing this for 9 years. So, my quota is going to be different than yours, who's, I don't know, who depends on how long you've been doing anything. But yeah, you just have to be aware that downtime is also productive.
Absolutely. And I love that you went there and spoke about this because this was a big part of my journey and things that I have worked with clients on too. I think probably even spoke about it in my podcast also, which I'm really excited for that episode you just said you edited. I'm going to personally listen to that because I probably need some more of those reminders in my life right now. But it's something that was different during like my awakening journey. When I turned off my autopilot of living, right? When I became into that awareness that it was more than just our, you know, wake, eat, work, sleep, repeat cycle over and over again,
Eating, we
because
had
it's
time for
not
eating.
right. So when I went through my awakening, this was a big, big, huge piece. It was one of the first pieces I did in my own personal healing because I couldn't focus on anything or even going deeper in my own trauma healing when when I wasn't taking time for myself. And
Mhm.
I didn't realize that, I didn't feel worthy of it. I felt like I was stuck in the past in this like role that I put myself in, by the way, completely put myself in as this like 1960s housewife. At that time when this was going on, I was staying home with the children. My husband was working all these crazy hours. And I felt, well, because he's doing that, I need to make sure that, dinner is ready, when he gets home, this beautiful, like from scratch meal and taking care of the kids and the house. And luckily, I have a fantastic husband who's very supportive, and he sees me so drained. He's like, "What are you doing to yourself? I don't care if you didn't clean the house today. I am a grown man who could make my own food if you were exhausted," is what he told me. I'm like, thank gosh, he's my balance too. But it was during this time there's a whole point to the story that I had to start checking out for myself. And what happened was, and luckily it was my husband that pushed me, and he started seeing it because I was like losing myself, so drained in all of this that I was becoming a different person and couldn't keep up. I was more stressed all the time. I was exhausted. Don't touch me. I don't like take care of the kids. So we're just on that verge. And one day I remember him telling me, he's like, okay, he grabbed the kids after he works, like he was working 612s at the time. It was crazy. He's like, leave. He's like, just go. It was in the morning. And he's like, I don't want to see you here till dinner. It's like, excuse me? Well, that's not going to happen because guess what? I was like, if I go, mom guilt turns on and no way am I going to be able to leave that long. And then I'm thinking about the chaos, like the kids, everything gets crazy and the dog and like, he's not going to survive this. Like, I know where his like patience is not there. Like, what? And I remember the first time I did it, I left, I was gone for an hour and then it hit me and I'm like, no, mom guilt. Everybody needs me. I need to get back. And so I would get back home and he's like, what are you doing back so soon? I'm like, well, and I was trying to like play it off or whatever. He's like, I'm fine. I'm good now. So I'd sit down and everything would kind of go crazy. Like the kids would start going and I swear this has been his thing ever since that day and so on. He's like, the kids, everything was great and calm and perfect until you came home.
Yep.
I was like, what? So it took me a long time to understand that it was my energy that was creating that chaos around because we all do that. And
Mhm.
especially for those of us who are more sensitive. So if you're an empath or you're someone very intuitive and healer, like we on top of that create and affect the environment around us by our own energy levels.
Mhm.
So I found the more, and it took a buildup of time before I was able to do the full day.
Sure.
And now, of course, I do this all the time. Like I need my time because guess what? As a sensitive, as an empath, the one thing that fuels you, the one thing that recharges you is alone time. You
Mhm.
need to separate. That doesn't make you a bad mother or a bad spouse or anything else because what my husband knows, he knows I come back and I am in a way better place. So I'm happier, I'm lighter, and I am a better mother and I am a better partner because I have taken that time out. I have this recharged energy where I can tackle, the mundane tasks of the laundry and the cooking and all of that. So now I'm at a place where I take meditation weekends, a couple of times a year. I get to go and do that. And that's when I'm even supercharged. I come back and like I'm good for a really long amount of time when I get to do this. Like it's amazing. But I tell this story and I get so deep into those details because I want to make sure that people understand and are able to connect. Like I've been there and I know that. And it takes a long time to get used to taking care of yourself and to putting yourself first. And I am in this big awareness of it. And so much, I've done so much work in this that in fact, I didn't share this already when I was talking about my work before. I have created and I am hosting my very, very first annual About Healing retreat. It's going to come up in April of 2024, April 20th of 2024 to be specific, because I have been so guided. It's something I've meditated on. This is something I've dreamt about. This is such a huge fire energy underneath to make sure that I create this. But it is this beautiful day of luxurious self-care to force other light workers And I say light worker, I am talking about the healers, whether it is someone like, you who teaches yoga and who speaks these beautiful words to people, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a social worker, a therapist, whether you're in hospitality or customer service. We're talking about the people that are here that just feel so drawn to make other people's lives better. The ones where we give and give. And we would easily just keep giving if we had the energy to do that. We would just keep giving and helping and healing and doing what we can to change this world. But the truth is, we cannot do that without help and assistance. And
Mhm.
if you are one that you're a light worker, or if you're a healer, or in any of these, we're in this capacity where you are helping other people, this is a really important conversation and a really important topic. You need to take care of yourself. This is not selfish. You shouldn't feel guilt for doing this. In fact, you cannot give your best or help other people if you are not at your best.
Mhm.
You're giving them pieces of you. And if you get so drained, like I know where I'm at, and I understand I have not been able to give what I know that I could be giving, or the energy hasn't been there. So taking these breaks. And so I've created this retreat, and it's like this full day, and it's at a luxury hotel. And it's time to invest in yourself. Let's invest in your self-care. So you can do the luxury stuff for you. And this isn't like insanely extravagant. Like for me, like what I have done for this day, I've created this day, and your ticket includes all of this. Like you get this gourmet buffet breakfast included. And we're going to have vendors out there selling beautiful products, and it's all self-care products. And then we go in and we have 3 guest speakers and a keynote. So you're getting 4 beautiful healing speakers that are coming in there to empower, ones that are not only in the field, but have these powerful messages to help all of us realign. How do we realign and fuel ourselves so we can make sure that we're going out and healing the world? So you have these beautiful messages from them. And then we stop, after the third speaker. And then I have specifically given a 4-hour break. But this is the self-care break. I am forcing people and giving people this dedicated time and space. And there's a whole list of things people can do, whether you want to do it for free or you want to reserve and spend a little bit more money and investing in your own self-care. But you can go get a spa service. You can go take a walk on the riverfront. You can go and treat yourself to a beautiful lunch with new friends. You can, I mean, if you're staying in that hotel, they have bathtubs, and it's amazing. Clean bathtubs, not like gross spas. Like I don't do that. Ugh. Anyway, it's amazing, and it's this big wellness place. And it's taking that time to really just reconnect with yourself and feeling relaxed. We come back together at the end of the day for keynote speaker, and then you get a 3-course sit-down dinner where people are serving you beautiful and delicious food. And then it's this networking party where everybody kind of gets to let loose and get to know each other. Because this is the point. If you put a lot of light workers together and healers, because I don't know about you personally, Savannah, but the people that I talk to when I'm out of alignment are other light workers. Those
Mhm.
are the people that always lift me up and give me the reminders. And after each of those conversations, I don't care if if I'm in a bad place and they're helping me, or if we're just having a fun conversation, I always feel supercharged. Like supercharged. Everything, I feel great after those conversations.
Mhm.
So imagine going to a place where this big, beautiful time and space where you have like a whole crowd of them. And we're all together in the same place where there's no judgment. There is just understanding, and we're there for the same reason. And so we take that information and we're supercharging so that we can continue from that moment to go out there and continue to do this beautiful work. And then we come back a year later. This is why this is a yearly conference, because you're going to need it again to supercharge yourself and go out and create and heal the world. Because the truth is, as a healer, I don't care what line of work you're in, if you are not healing yourself and if you are not aligned, you cannot do it for someone else.
Mhm.
Because the truest inspiration of healing is doing the work yourself.
Mhm.
When you do the work yourself, people see and they feel the difference. What are you doing? And that's why it has been so important that I've always been very honest about what I'm going through, because we all go through it.
Mhm.
Why do we have to keep holding shame and hiding these pieces? Let's start breaking these old generational cycles, these old societal comfort zones. Stop. Like, I'm burnt out and that's okay, but I'm really aware of it. And you know what? Okay, that just means I need to take a break. So now I have to set boundaries for myself, and that's boundaries for other people. And then I have to shut down for a while. Like, I'm not taking clients. We're not doing these things. Like, no, I need my time for a little bit. And guess what? Everybody understands.
Mhm.
No one's out there saying, oh, how dare you? Oh, that is so selfish of you to, because that's in our mind, that's what plays. People are going to think I'm selfish, or I'm going to feel guilty.
Well, some
But
people
just
probably are, but that's their projections of their own beliefs of
correct.
themselves. And
They're
you
so
don't want
stuck
that
in that.
negativity and hatefulness in your life anyway, so.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because remember that other people's judgments, and even your own, all judgments are only but a reflection of one's own fears.
Mm.
So if someone is throwing a judgment, I want you to see it, because that was a huge change, because I was always affected by the judgments of others. In fact, that's how I lived my life. Like, I would only do things, I lived by expectations of others, and I wouldn't do things because of judgment. That was a huge piece of my awakening and my self-healing too. That's a
Most
really
people's.
long process. Yes. And we're all affected by that, right? Because it is that survival tactic. In caveman days, is if you didn't fit in, you were exiled. And when you were exiled, you died. Like,
Yep.
it was, we had to be safe. And this is a big moment here. Just know that we are in a different time and place. Like, you are safe.
Mhm.
You're safe. You are safe to be free, to be yourself. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to understand. No, not everybody's going to understand what your truths are, but there's so much power in that, and this goes back into the big healing. And this is my big message about healing in itself. Look, we've been in survival mode most of our lives,
Mhm.
because we were taught, we were thriving as babies, depending on the circumstances you were in or you were born into, but you thrived until you started learning from the environment around you. And then we start bringing in these false beliefs. We start bringing in all these pieces like, oh, but this person did that, so I can't do that because I will have the same experience. So we start collecting all of these pieces. And so we create these limiting beliefs for ourselves too. So I can't do this because this person did that and they failed. Okay, well, what's wrong with failing in the first place? We have to redo that. There's nothing wrong with that, because there's experience in failure no matter what. We are here to have these experiences. And on the other side, I'm telling you now from the spiritual perspective, as a medium, and because I only connect with light. And so when I connect, I am connecting, whether it's for myself or clients or anybody else, it is love and light, and for the best and highest purpose of love and healing. And when I go in and see, I can see past lives, I can go and see our pre-life planning, because we are not humans here with souls.
Mm.
We are first and foremost souls here having a human experience. And on the other side, there is no evil, there is no good, like good and bad.
Those
Those
are.
definitions don't exist. Everything is just an experience, because it's here. We come here for the human experience, is to have the ego experience. And those categories and those definitions are part of the ego experience. And
Mhm.
when we detach and we cross over, ego separates. And
Mhm.
so even when loved ones come through, and they were ones, with some of my clients, and whether in life they were very angry people and they held judgments and all of that, they have always come through with a higher perspective. Look, I'm sorry. I understand now. And it's always kind of been that way, those type of messages when they come through. Because outside of this human experience, we do not have ears, we don't have mouths, we don't have skin. We do not have these defining characteristics. We do not have a race. We do not have a gender. We are literally made of light. The only difference in how we understand each other is through vibration. That is that our energy and our essence. And it is never, ever to be at a higher level, because that's why we're here. We're here to have these experiences, to grow in our evolvement, to raise our vibration. And Earth is it's like one of the hardest schools you can go to. Like, we choose to come here because we want this experience, but everything that we learn here and everything we go through, whether you classify it as good or bad, it has these massive, massive ripple effects that go so much further than if we were to stay in our light form. And I explain it to people. This is the I guess metaphor that I use is when we're in our light form on the other side, because we are in love, like we're made of love, that love vibration, we are understanding, there is zero judgment, we're always helping each other. You know, if I'm a higher vibration, I want to help you get there. I want you to be with me. Let's do this together. But we can sit there in Akashic records and we can learn all day. We can sit there and we can study and we can try to understand. But when it comes to the emotional human experience, right, this ego experience, it's like learning chemistry out of a book. It's just symbols and formulas. And I don't know what that would do. I don't really understand it because we're in the higher vibrations only when we cross, right? So we choose to come
What is
here in
this
this plane.
depression thing that the humans talk about?
What was that?
What is this depression thing that the humans talk about?
Well, that's the point. Like we come here in this heaviness, right? It's this heaviness, like this plane. I don't care if you believe in spirituality or souls or anything else. But if I tell everybody, you know, when we live here on this earth, it feels so heavy. It's like heaviness, denseness. Everybody gets that because we all feel it. But that's the point. We come here for this duality experience. And so we choose to come here so that we can understand it and see the experiment, right? We can see that formula. We can do that experiment and truly understand it. And then we choose to keep coming back and doing different lives, because in one life, you could have experienced one half of the coin, but to fully understand something, we need to do the other half. And so that was a huge piece for me to understand. So my background, I also have a background in social work and social services. So I have a degree and I did that for many years. And one thing that was really hard, because I worked for CPS for a while too, was I couldn't understand how could people hurt people, especially innocents. Like how could that be?
Yeah.
And if we take a moment. So when we're in the ego experience, we just have all these judgments and people should do these things. And it's really hard. And I'm not saying that anything is good or bad. Like I'm not talking about that. But if we pull our perspective back, if we can zoom out and we can look at the bigger picture and talking about the soul itself, sometimes it chooses to come back and experience something that's hard because in a past life, they were the opposite. Maybe they were a perpetrator in another life. And for them to understand what that means, they would have to come back and experience some things. And that's just one piece of it. I'm not saying that that's always the reason and why these things happen, because things are a choice. Trauma happens and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know what to do with our trauma. And by the way, trauma is not just these really big experiences we've had where we were abused or, you know, trauma comes from something that's unresolved that we carry with us that creates these big, heavy emotions. You know, divorce is trauma. I mean, people minimize their trauma, but my trauma is that because I was that person. I minimize
trauma too.
Right. Right. I've always minimized mine. I mean, people have gone through way worse. So how could, like, I'm just going to put mine on the back burner. And I did it forever until one day someone asked, like, no, like your trauma matters. That's yours. And you need to heal from it. And it was in that point where I started to understand it. I was worthy of that. And I got to, and this is, you are worthy of coming out of survival mode and thriving. And then I kind of almost in the back of my mind, it's like, but how do I do that? How do I want to thrive? Everybody wants to thrive. But how do I get there? It's by doing the hard stuff that not everybody wants to do. And that's why it's not that common. And it's healing. It is literally going in and doing that hard work and letting go. It's letting go, finding your self-worth, releasing false beliefs, finding your own truths, and finding that courage, because it's courage, finding that courage. And you're not born with courage. That's something you have to find on your own. Finding the courage to speak your truth. Because when you stop living inside this little box that society has created for you, when you stop living your life for the expectations of others, just to calm the waters or not rock the boat, you are giving your energy away. You're giving your life away. And you were so out of alignment with what you are meant to do in your own energy, which is why you have depression. This is why we have this anxiety and everything else, because we're giving it and we're letting other people take our power away from us. But you take your power back by going deep, and start living your own life and start letting go of those expectations, to start building these beautiful barriers and boundaries, and to start loving yourself. Love yourself enough to do that, because no one can do it for you. You're the only one who can do it, the only one who can choose.
And that's the trap that most of us fall into, is that seeking external validation rather than the internal validation.
Yes. Oh, speak truth. Yes, 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 yes.
And I love how you included social workers and CPS workers and all of these other people into your light workers group, like when you're talking about that, because people hear light workers and they automatically think woo woo. And then if you're not woo
Right.
woo, then you just throw it up and you're just like, oh, well, shut that off. But it really is just anybody that's trying to do good in the world.
Right. And I think, and that's a piece. And, I wanted to say to you, Savannah, I adore what you're doing, and that you're speaking about all these beautiful pieces that other people call woo-woo.
Mm.
I think we're in this new time, and where I was saying that, we're in a time that we're safe, and we're in a time where more people are awakening, right? So we all were planted, we're not planted. We chose to come here to awaken at a certain point. Okay, to have this big awakening experience, to come out and start raising the vibration of this planet. That's what we're doing. We're raising the collective consciousness, which in the non-woo-woo terms is we're trying to create world peace. And it is possible, not in our lifetimes. We will never see it in our lifetime, but we are doing the groundwork and creating the foundation, because it's something that happens in layers. We have to keep raising it, because, I like to say, look at history in itself and where we've, been to where we are now. Like I was talking about caveman days. I mean, we're down to basic survival needs, and people would do anything, like kill and rape and pillage just for a piece of meat, or for whatever they wanted. Very, very, very ego straight.
I mean, they were
But
doing
then,
it just a couple hundred years ago still.
no, that's what I mean. And then you keep fast forwarding through history and like wars and things like that. Like two kings would battle and sacrifice hundreds or thousands of people just so they get a bigger piece of property
Make
for
it make
themselves, right? And then we go through, we had slavery, and we had, think about, um, just rights in general. So we're talking about gender rights and equality and women's rights. There's so much that's happened even in the last 100 years in that. That's a quick evolvement if you think
Yeah.
about it. If you look back in history. So I know people get really down, like, oh, the world today, it's so dark, it's so bad. We've been worse.
Yeah. Way worse.
And guess what? Negativity, the lower vibrations, those lower frequencies speak louder than light.
They do.
And so we are at this new level now. And that's why I was complimenting you, Savannah, is that now we're having more of these brave and courageous souls that are coming out of, we're coming into this awakening. And now we are spreading more loving truth, because people were so afraid to speak that because of the negativity that would fall on. But we're taking our power back now. That's what we're doing. So if you want to create this change in the world and you want to see it, and we can complain about it all day, right? But you don't even have to, I'm going to say, but you got to be that change, right? There's that whole cliche. You don't have to go out and do, create a podcast and talk. But if you can go within yourself and just start that healing work and aligning with your own truths and just being brave enough, even in your small, intimate circle, to start speaking your own truths and separating yourself from the herd and the crowd, because the truth is, like, we are not all the same. We do not have the same interests. An interesting fact here too, because I have a whole episode on false beliefs and finding your truth and all of these things, that and I've done a workshop too, and we're talking about religions, and this is really powerful. We're talking about truth and religions and all of that. There is not one truth that blankets all of mankind ever in history. Not one. There is not one truth that every single man or human being believe in. All the same. Not one.
Nope. Sure is not.
So guess what? There's not a wrong answer. And what it's all about, going deep within yourself. What do you believe? What feels right for you? Because if you go into whatever these beliefs are, this is how we like weed out those false beliefs, is we take this one moment and we have conversations with loved ones, and they say something, oh, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel right to me. And you don't have to argue it to say your truth is better than somebody else's, because we need to respect where other people are too. That's where they're at. Maybe they're either not ready to dig into their own truths, or, they fully believe that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is okay for us to have that separate opinion or the separate belief. It's finding that, but what makes us feel comfortable? Because the more you get comfortable with it, the less anxiety you're carrying too.
Mm-hmm.
And we let go of it and we find ourselves more comfortable. And the less secrets we hold, oh, there that goes. The anxiety leaves. We can be more honest. It just starts shedding those heavy, wet blanket layers that we carry on ourselves, because we don't want the judgment, or we're afraid of what other people might think.
Mm-hmm.
But under it all, the more you align with your truth, the more actually you raise your frequency. You're raising your vibration when you do that. And you may lose relationships, because that happens during an awakening. This is all part of that process. We start shedding, essentially, those that don't fit our frequency anymore. And if they do not raise theirs with us, then there's falling outs, right? It just disconnects. And that's not like bad. People think of that. And I mean, yes, sometimes we have to grieve those relationships, but
Bad.
it's not like you did anything wrong, nor did they. But you should never stop your growth to make other people comfortable. Don't ever do that, because now you just gave so much of your power away for something that feels amazing to you. And guess what? If you were feeling better, then loved ones should support that. And if they don't, then guess what? As you raise and you're shedding, but you're also drawing to you so many more that align with that and would support that and help you just to keep going. So you're never left with nothing. You're still drawing more in. You just got to be open to it.
Yeah. It's all the energy, and we're learning how to, it's becoming more commonplace to understand energy, because underlying it all, energy is the only thing that communicates across the board.
Mm-hmm.
We have people get stuck on languages and words, and there's so many. And I'm finding that even in people who speak the same language, we don't always speak the same language. So, I have my best friend, me and her we can barely hold a conversation, because even though we're both from the same location, we speak English in the dialect of the vernacular of where we are, both of us. So it's not that, but it's an energy thing, to where if we try to use words, we are going to get confused. We are not going to understand. We might even get into it a little bit and argue. So mostly we speak through energy, and we just kind of like point and grunt.
It's true though.
Yeah.
It is so true. And that's funny that you were speaking about language, and even when we're speaking it, and it's one thing that I say often, especially when people start hearing woo-woo words, and I've said it on my podcast or in my workshops, it's don't get hung up on this woo-woo word. Stop
Mm-hmm.
for a second, check yourself, because if you feel like, ooh, that's woo-woo, stop. I want you to realign
There's
it, and I
other
want you to
ways
look at the
to express
meaning
this.
underneath. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
look at the meaning underneath, because you can call it whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's when I say intuition or when I say soul, you can call it again what feels comfortable for you.
Your
What
brain,
do you
your
associate to
mind,
it?
whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter.
Does not matter.
Nope. I think that's very beautiful. And yeah, our energy affects, that's what I mean. It's the energy. You can have a whole conversation with someone without words.
Mm-hmm. You can, and you can have a whole lot of words with nothing being actually conveyed.
Mhm. Yep. Empaths will tell you.
Oh yeah.
Some people can have a whole conversation, and guess what? That meaning underneath meant something so different. And they're
Oh my
like,
gosh,
that's
I don't
not
even
right.
need to talk to people most of the time. 3 sentences in, and I already know exactly where your mind is, where your heart is, what kind of traumas you
Hmm.
have, what's programming is backing you up. And people don't even like, I don't understand how everybody doesn't intuit it that, but there are
Hmm.
people that can get through my radar. And like definitely people have gotten through my radar, but it's been like less than a handful.
Right. And you know what? A lot of those people too, even though you're reading them and you're seeing that they're saying one thing and meaning another,
Mm.
is that even if you were to call them out, I'm actually doing an empath workshop right now. And some of them have brought that up. Like, I will tell them and they don't even understand. I'm like, because
Nope.
they don't want to. And even if you bring it up, they're going to tell you you're crazy or full of it.
Yep.
Like, that's not it, because that's still something deep down that they're not even willing
They
to,
don't realize it.
they're not self aware or they don't want to be. And so, and that's also something too. Like, you can't, like, we can't go in and read everybody in that way too and try to heal them. We can never do that. Remember, healing is something people have to choose to do. So, or again, that awareness there too. Yeah. So we can only do it for ourselves and put up boundaries.
It's a very good skill to learn to just smile and nod and be patient and let go of your expectations or your attachment to what or how or everybody else around you does and speaks and acts and chooses.
Absolutely. And yes, 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 everything you just said, that is a huge form of self-care and boundary, but it's
Hmm.
hard for a lot of people because again,
Sure.
sometimes our egos get in the way, right? So we want to correct or we want to help, and we
Well, we're
have to
designed
sometimes
that way, you know, because going back to the caveman days, if you were exiled, you died. And our
mm-hmm.
family members don't want that to happen to us. So we innately essentially corral our loved ones into a more acceptable community, socially, culturally acceptable way of behaving and speaking and being and doing and choosing for their own safety. But things have changed and we are, for the most part, safe to explore and do and be and say, even if it doesn't always
Mm-hmm.
feel like it. I know I've always been this person with the woo woo and the crazy and whatnot. And in Alabama, no doubt. So there's still backlash from my local
Mm-hmm.
community. If I post something on a local Facebook group, I'd always get someone who's attacking me. And it's not just one person.
No, but again, like you said, that's just a reflection of their own fear, because again, they were brought up knowing or thinking that. And isn't that interesting though? We talk about love, like literally that
Yes,
that
literally.
is the energy behind our work, right? We're talking about love. We're talking about healing or really getting into your own area. But when we can post things like that and they classify it as woo woo, oh, that's evil. I can't
Mhm.
believe you would say that, because it's out of alignment with their own beliefs and it challenges, right? When we're not ready to do that or being challenged, like our truth is the truth and that one's out there. So everybody else is wrong and it's evil. And it's really hard too if you live in a highly religious area too. And I don't want to get too far into religion because I don't put it down in that aspect, because there's some religion that is beautiful because everybody deserves to believe what they believe in.
Oh, whatever
Absolutely.
helps this human experience, whatever helps you
Mm-hmm.
get through that, because it can be
Right.
really hard, really heavy, really dense,
Yes.
really depressive, really lots of traumatic. And every single
Yes.
one of us would rather just crawl back into bed and cry most of the time. So, whatever helps you manage
Mm-hmm.
that and live with that and get through that existential dread of how we're all going to die in the end, like, yeah, more power to you. Please believe whatever makes you feel better,
Yes.
but like, calm down and leave me alone.
Correct. But it's also don't cause pain to other people. And that's really where it's at. We just send love. If we can teach that too, because I do that too. Someone gives me like this really big advice that is so like, woo, trying to change something. Thank you. And I just send love. Thank you. Thank you for that. Send love.
Your gritted
And
teeth.
then I drop it and I release it and I walk away.
Hmm.
I don't take it
Yeah.
with me.
Which takes
That's a hard, that was exactly it. I mean, and it's a hard piece to change. And it does take a lot of practice to be
Mhm.
able to drop it, because it's not an attack on you. Again, reflection of themselves, and always send it back, because again, that
Thank
is
you.
their fears.
Yeah, every interaction we have with everybody else is always a gift that we don't have to receive if we don't want to. And that's the thing, a lot of us, because an interaction is a gift and we long for this connectivity and the camaraderie and the community building and those
Mhm.
relationships that is the essence of who we are as individuals, whether we believe it, whether we realize it or not. Relationships and the connectivity to one another is the thing that all of us value the most. And So when someone interacts with you, even if it's cringy,
Mhm.
then a lot of us are inclined to be nice and smile and nod, and it can be really sketchy sometimes to try to navigate.
Yeah. But it's your own boundaries too. And we need to also make sure that you understand that other people aren't allowed to suck your energy, or we don't have to allow those people that are in those lower vibrations or in a bad mood to take yours away. And that takes practice too. It is practicing cutting that energy cord there where that can affect you. And you also have the right and the worthiness to be able to walk away if you need to.
Hmm.
Absolutely. If you are called selfish or, another degrading word for doing that, so what? So be it. You saved yourself in that moment and you didn't have to collect that and take it on as your own too. So there's all boundaries. I know we don't do enough of that. And it's a challenge for a lot of people, especially again, if you're a healer, a sensitive, it's hard to put up those boundaries because we just want to give. It just makes it makes it so much easier when we give because then we don't have to worry about the backlash of not feeling expectations, right?
Yeah,
So
the backlash of having boundaries is a very real thing.
it
And
is.
a lot easier just to sacrifice those boundaries than to deal with the backlash a lot of the times. But that's not healthy for you. It's not
Nope.
healthy for them, because if they're not
Nope.
respecting your boundaries and they're not okay with you having boundaries, that is a good fire sign that they need to go sit with themselves for a little bit and find their own boundaries and wonder and like figure out why it's so important for them to press your boundaries. What
Right.
are they missing in themselves?
Right. And boundaries also, well, that's interesting. I totally had this beautiful thing. I have this whole thing on boundaries and it like disappeared. Where did that go?
Be like that sometimes.
I know what just happened. It was right there. No, actually, I have a whole series on boundaries too on my podcast. But boundaries are important. It won't come back. Why won't it come back? It's such a good piece. I lost it. It's
That's okay.
gone.
Boundaries.
It's
Go do
okay. Yeah.
those.
I
Uh,
guess if you want more detail and if you really want to know what I had to say because I lost it, I have a whole series on it.
It'll find them when they need it, right?
Yeah, it's there. Wasn't important. In the moment anyway.
Well, this has been a really, really fast-paced episode. Like, I feel like we've only been here for like 10 minutes, but a whole hour's went by. It was a really easy
It went
episode,
by.
too. I didn't have to work hard at all.
Um, I'm a talker, obviously. I have my own podcast that I like to talk, and I will talk all day about these beautiful pieces and this beautiful work that, that you do too, to connect with others and to know that, if I can leave anything for anybody else, and it's one phrase that I use when I sign off on my podcast, and I truly mean this to every single person out there, everyone out in our entire world is learning how to be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
We can be kind to ourselves. That way we inspire the rest, everybody else around us to start doing the same. And that can make a huge difference and can change our entire vibrational existence.
Absolutely. So tell people how they can find you.
I have a website. It is abouthealingmedium.com. And I have my handles on social media, which is all about healing medium. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, just started that. And of course, my podcast is also about healing podcast. I almost said medium. That's not the medium is not in my podcast. About healing podcast. Yes, that's it.
All right. And we'll link that all nearby. Thank you so much for being here today.
This has been a gift. Mhm.